When we left Odysseus at the end of chapter 1, he was preparing to go to war, leaving his wife Penelope and his infant son Telemachus, home. He's very upset about that. This is chapter 2. Lots of new vocabulary words for chapter 2. Remember, as we read the novel, we are looking for not only the vocabulary words and their meaning according to the context, but also we are looking for homophones. And the words for chapter 2 are a prince, which would be the son of a king, princess, the daughter of a king, slew, slay, or slain are all the same verb, action word, which means to kill or murder. Bravest, those with the most courage. Trapdoor, a hinged panel in the floor. Trojan horse, a gift that causes harm. Traitor, betrays friends or nation, nation as in country. Horde is a huge group of people. That is a review from chapter 1. Pitch black is as dark as tar or asphalt, you know, the stuff they make the roads out of. Sleek is narrow and smooth. God is a male deity. A goddess is a female deity. Fierce, savage, and violent. Warrior, soldier, or fighter. The expression, beware of Greeks bearing gifts, goes back to a Trojan horse being a gift that causes harm. Monstrous is like a horrible creature. Heave, pick up or throw heavy thing. Dawn is sunrise. Eerie, strange and scary. Jubilant, extremely happy. Metaphors is another part of speech or a writing strategy that Mary Pope Osborne uses a lot of in her books. It is a figure of speech. It is non-literal language, and it compares two things without using like or as. And they give you some examples there. Chapter 2, The Wooden Horse. For the next 10 years, Odysseus camped with 1,000 Greek warriors outside the walls of Troy. He despaired that the war would ever end. The Greeks slew many Trojan leaders in battle, including the prince who had stolen Helen from her Greek husband. But Helen herself remained captive within the tall, thick walls of Troy. The Greeks had not been able to find a way to enter the city and take her back. One day, Odysseus left the Greek camp and sat alone on the Trojan shore. He mourned the separation from his wife and felt terribly sad that he had missed seeing his son grow up. He feared that his mother and father might have died while he was at war, and that he would never lay eyes on them again. Suddenly, a tall woman appeared before Odysseus. She wore a shining helmet and carried a spear and a shield. The woman was Athena, the goddess of wisdom and war, and a daughter of Zeus. Athena stared at Odysseus with flashing gray eyes. Though her gaze was fierce, it was also kind. Athena had always been fond of Odysseus. She admired his skills as a carpenter and craftsman, and she loved him for his strength and clever ways. Odysseus was speechless as he stood before the goddess. And here is a beautiful statue of Athena with her helmet, her spear, and her shield that symbolizes war. And remember, she is the goddess of wisdom and war. Often an owl sits at her feet to symbolize wisdom. I have come to help you take Helen back from the Trojans, she said. Here is how you shall bring down the walls of Troy. Direct your carpenters to build a giant wooden horse. Hide with a few of your men inside the horse while the rest of the Greeks pretend to leave the land in defeat. Thinking the horse has been abandoned, the Trojans will bring it inside their walls. When night falls and the Greek soldiers return, open the gates of the city and let them in. The goddess left as quickly as she had come. Once again, here's a beautiful picture of the Trojan horse. Odysseus set to work at once. He called for his best carpenter and directed him to build the giant wooden horse. When the horse was finished, Odysseus ordered his men to carve Athena's name into its side. He then chose his bravest warriors and led them up a rope ladder to a secret trapdoor in the belly of the horse. He and his men locked themselves inside and waited. Soon Odysseus heard the Greek warriors set fire to their camp. He heard them board their ships and sail away in the night. Odysseus dared not sleep as he waited for morning. After many hours he heard seagulls crying in the dawn light. Then he heard footsteps on the sand and voices. "What is this horse?" a Trojan shouted. "Why did the Greeks build it and then abandon it on our shore?" "It is ours now," said another Trojan. "Let us haul it inside our walls." "No, we must not," cried another. "We must never trust gifts from the Greeks. Throw this monstrous thing into the sea." "Burn it," some yelled. "Let it stay," others shouted. The argument was interrupted by a Greek soldier who had stayed behind and allowed himself to be captured by the Trojans. Now he claimed to be a traitor to the Greeks. "This horse is a gift for Athena," he lied. "See her name carved into its side? If you destroy it, the goddess will punish you. But if you give it a place of honor in your city, she will give Troy power over all the world." The Trojans argued bitterly about whether or not to trust the captive. Finally, the king made a decision. "We will keep the wooden horse," he said. "Bring it inside the gates of Troy." Odysseus felt great relief and excitement. Athena's plan was working. He and his men scarcely breathed as the Trojans heaved the giant horse onto rollers, then pushed it into the city. Odysseus waited patiently for night to come. When all was silent, he opened the trapdoor in the horse's belly. It was pitch black outside. The city was eerily calm. All the Trojans had returned to their homes and gone to bed. Under the cover of darkness, Odysseus led the way down the rope ladder. He and his men crept to the city gates, unbolted them, and threw them open. Hordes of Greek warriors were waiting on the other side. In the darkness, they had sailed back to Troy and silently gathered outside the gates. With a horrifying battle cry, the Greek army rushed into the city. They killed many men and captured women and children to keep as slaves. They found Helen and returned her to her Greek husband. By dawn, the entire city of Troy was in flames. The triumphant Greek warriors loaded their ships with treasure. Then finally, after 10 long years, they set sail for home. As a strong wind carried Odysseus and his 12 sleek ships away from the shores of Troy, he was jubilant. He imagined all of Ithaca rejoicing over his victorious return. He imagined himself soon embracing his beloved wife and son and his parents. Never had he felt so hopeful and happy. The end of chapter 2.